Hello, everyone, and welcome back into Crypto's News. It is me, Omar Bam, aka Crypto, here to make sure that you stay informed and on top of what is happening in crypto today. And so I'm bringing you what I think are the most important stories to make sure that that happens for you. Thank you so much for the support, for showing up. I want to give a special thanks to Dennis Carroll for being the latest Patreon supporter. Thank you for that. It's a huge help here on the show, and we're going to go ahead and just start diving into things to make sure that you know what is up. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a nice beverage if you can, or a snack, and let's get into it. So when we're looking at the prices, let's start there today. We have Bitcoin and Ethereum both giving some back. Bitcoin had briefly broken over $24,000, but it's now settled at $22,741.49. It looked like it wanted to hold up a little bit better relative to stocks, but it is giving some of that back, as I mentioned before. Ethereum as well, down 3.2%, yet still holding over $1,500, currently at $1,539. And yeah, overall, all market caps are down at 2.5%. I think that we are seeing some of this volatility. We could be seeing increased volatility because we have the Fed meeting coming up next week. I believe that's the 26th and the 27th when that is going to be taking place. And because of that, I'm dependent on whether the Fed raises rates by 75 basis points or a full 100 basis points. That could really affect how, especially risk assets, are traded. This seems to be the general consensus right now, is that according to some predictors and trading of the futures, it looks like 20% is a chance for for a 100 basis point hike. So it looks like most of the speculators are assuming that we're going to be seeing a 75 basis point hike. And a lower hike does seem to be something that, for example, hey, what's up, JT? Nice to see you. I'm always lurking. I'm always reading what you're saying, man. Always good vibes there. There was one comment that you had said that was so funny today. Oh man, you haven't lived if you haven't seen, we haven't seen you in yoga pants, with the beef was. Oh man, good times. Yeah, ETH Finance, great community. Always giving them a shout out because they have done so much for just spreading knowledge. One of the best places on the internet you can learn and cover. I mean, they talk about other coins besides just Ethereum all the time. Although it's an Ethereum-centric forum, it tends to be level-headed people. Highly recommended if you haven't checked out ETH Finance on Reddit. But yeah, we have the 10-year yield dropping. Some are saying this is the Fed buying through backdoor channels. We had the European Central Bank doing all their emergency programs, and so the Fed had to open up their own emergency programs in the background, and they're the ones buying up the bonds so that they don't really get too far ahead here and they lose control of this. Let me know what you guys think. But anyway, the fact that it's falling is something that could be a sign that the Fed might have to reverse course soon and again shift. And this is something else. I'm hearing some metrics that inflation may have topped out at 10% or whatever. I don't know if that's true or not, but it does make sense that just like we don't see crypto bull markets continue up month after month after month forever, there's always going to be that day, that week where things pull back. And the same when we're dropping, you have those days where things climb higher. It'll be the same thing here with the inflation, where we do give some back and then it continues higher again. We will have to see. You have some out there that are saying that we might be close to a bottom. Like Raul Pal had a huge thread today. He was going into the ISM metrics. He was going through chart and chart and chart. That's Raul Pal of the Real Vision YouTube channel. And he's betting that bonds are a big thing to go into right now, as well as exponential age technology things. So I think crypto kind of piles into that. For example, he was saying that he thinks that cryptos may have very well based, but in the near term, they might be a little bit pushed. And that could be the case since we did have quite a rally recently. But we haven't hit the Ethereum merge just yet, so there could be a lot more left to the rally. I think if you're buying over the medium term, it does depend really how. And we're on uncharted territory here, so we're all learning here what happens as the Fed raises rates and as we enter a possible recession here, and how that is digested by the market. So pretty much the same story in that regard. So this is probably the biggest story that's being talked about today. This is about the Three Arrows Capital founders. You remember that hedge fund that caused the contagion that just decimated the whole space. They were lending and borrowing from so many of the huge institutions and players in the crypto market that when they went down, they brought down carnage across the entire crypto industry, and they owe somewhere over like $2.8 billion. That number might even go up, apparently, according to court documents. So the founders you have here, Zhu and Davies, they have pretty much been disappeared. Hey, happy Friday, DC. That's right. Happy Friday, everybody. Lose track here in crypto land sometimes, but we made it to another week. That's great. As long as we have our health, I think that's good, and I'm always wishing you that. As long as you have a roof over your head, some food, you're doing all right. So good to see that. But a lot of people were wrecked with what happened with Three Arrows Capital, and the founders were gone AWOL for a long time. Now they did an exclusive interview here with Bloomberg that's being dissected by so many commentators in this space. After 5 weeks in hiding, the disgraced founders of Three Arrows Capital spoke extensively about the spectacular implosion of their once high-flying hedge fund, saying their bungled crypto speculation unleashed cascading margin calls on loans that never should have made. So we're finding all sorts of details from within this that these guys really just had no idea what they're doing. And they do try to excuse themselves quite a bit here in these interviews. So people may call us stupid. They may call us stupid or delusional, and I'll accept that. Maybe, Zeus said. They're both 35, these guys. But they're gonna, say that I absconded funds during the last period where I actually put more of my personal money back in. That's not true. So I think two of the great commentators who are most popular right now on Twitter, who are breaking this apart and going through it and giving us clues. Oh yeah, that's their office being empty. If you have yet to see that famous picture, although we've shown it on this channel a few times, the Three Arrows Capital office with mail piling up. So one of them is Ryan Sean Adams of the Bankless newsletter. And he said, how did 3AC go bust? Let's let Zhu and Kyle Davies tell the story. So firstly, they failed to manage risk. We believed in everything to the fullest, Kyle L. Davies said. They went all in on speculative projects using margin and didn't hedge. Kind of like gambling. We had almost all of our assets in there. And then in the good times, we did the best. That's how leverage works. And then in the bad times, we lost the most. They got wrecked by Luna. We failed to realize that Luna was capable of falling to effective zero in a matter of days. The stablecoin project that's now Terra Classic, it's what it's called, basically. They got alt L1 FOMO after missing the big alt L1 run-ups and started believing their own narratives. They added risk in an effort to catch up. What we failed to realize was that Luna was capable of falling to effective zero in a matter of days, and this would catalyze a credit squeeze across the industry that would put significant pressure on all of our illiquid positions. So they just did not understand the basics of the basics here. They got wrecked by STS depegging from ETH. Are there people who also leverage long staked Ether versus Ether who get liquidated as the market goes down? They didn't consider the risk of a market event causing staked ETH to depeg from ETH. They got wrecked by GBTC as well, by the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, because everyone did it. Then the trust went to discount, and then it went to a far bigger discount than anyone thought possible, as people were trying to all pile onto the same trade. They didn't consider the risk of GBTC trading at a large discount to BTC in the event of a downturn. Really, because that seemed to me like the most obvious thing that would happen. But yeah, they said, and then like others copied us into that trade later on and then lost not just the money, but also went into negative because everyone did it. Then the trust went to discount. Then it went to a far bigger discount than anyone thought possible. BTC at 20K was the nail in the coffin for them when Bitcoin dropped from $30,000, $20,000. That was extremely painful for us, Zeus said. That ended up being the nail in the coffin. They weren't ready for BTC to drop below 70% of all-time high, maybe because of their super cycle narrative. They thought this was going to continue and continue. So lessons for us as Ryan Sean Adams. Here's how 3AC went bust. Too much leverage, believing their own hype, buying the top on speculative assets, not being ready for a 90% drawdown. That's like the most basics of the basics of crypto, of what happens and has happened time and time again. And investing more than they could afford to lose. Noob stuff. The pros aren't always what they seem. Do your own research. So that was one of the big commentaries on it. We also heard from Arthur Hayes of BitMEX, and he said, this article is so amazing, I don't even know where to begin. Let's dig into this beauty of an interview with Su Zhu and Kyle Davies. So comment, y'all. Su ain't flashy. He rode his bike to work into the marina where his super yacht is moored. Only 2 homes. Brah, you straight slum it in the Kampong, aka Tanglin. So what he's basically, he's laughing at this comment here that Zhu said. The boat, this is in reference to that $50 million yacht that they had acquired before going under. The boat was bought over a year ago and commissioned to be built and to be used in Europe, adding that the yacht has a full money trail. He rejected the perception that he enjoyed an extravagant lifestyle, noting that he biked to work and back every day and that his family only has 2 homes in Singapore. Which I had read a comment on the ETH Finance subreddit saying that, well, those homes in Singapore on the lower end of the spectrum are going for $2 million. So he's pretty well off, even though he's not exactly slumming it. Take it back, says Arthur Hayes. As someone who loves the club, I take offense to this. So clubbing. The clubs. We were never seen in any clubs spending lots of money. We were never seen, kind of driving Ferraris and Lamborghinis around. This kind of smearing of us, I feel, is just from a classic playbook of, when this stuff happens, when funds blow up, then, these are the kinds of headlines that people like to play. I mean, yeah, a lot of people are really upset. I'm not even going today into the Celsius, maybe I should have gone into it, into just the saddest of the saddest letters that are being written in reference to the Celsius bankruptcy. You can find it on Stretto there. You'll see all these different letters that are being written of people who are borderline suicidal, who had put their money for medical expenses, for example, for their parents into Celsius and have been locked completely out of it. And they had planned this, X, Y, and Z for their plan. They had planned to move. They had planned to quit their job. They had planned so much, and everything has just been thrown. Everything has just blown up in their faces. They believed Alex Mashinsky, for example, and how he would come out and ask me anything. And even a week before everything was with withdrawals anyway were frozen, he was saying that everything was fine, that there were no actual customers complaining ever, and that Celsius was doing great. So people got continually wrecked. Yeah. There's a reason that the smearing kind of happens, is my point. Didn't read the white paper, tisk tisk. So many of you had pointed out the risks of Luna. They've been doing so for months, if not years before. What we failed to realize was that Luna was capable of falling to effective zero in a matter of days, and that this would catalyze a credit squeeze across the industry that would put significant pressure on all of our illiquid positions. So apparently the founder of of Terra Luna Do Kwon was very close with Suzu, and so maybe he was willing to overlook a lot of the red flags. Is some of the commentary I'm hearing because they were bros. Of course, my bro's not going to screw me. I don't need to read the white paper. That's my bro who wrote that. So while this might be the crypto version of long-term capital management, the founders of said hedge fund from back in the 90s, we talked about that one yesterday, never gave an interview quite like this. It was very much like a LTCM moment for us, like a long-term capital moment. Who said we had different types of trades that we all thought were good, and other people also had these trades, and then they all kind of got super marked down super fast. It's almost like we're reading of a teenager who's running such a massive company that was tethered to everything. Man, did they move fast and break things. Anyway, I will leave that. What I found was interesting at the bottom of the actual article here, and that's on Bloomberg again. Three Arrows founders break silence over collapse of crypto hedge fund. Was this? There have been a lot of death threats. So this is why they claim that they're in hiding and that we haven't heard much about them. Except now we're finding out that they're moving to Dubai from wherever undisclosed location they're at right now. But this is apparently the reason for their hiding. For Kyle and I, there's so many crazy people in crypto that kind of made death threats or all this kind of noise. We feel that it's just the interest for everyone if we can be physically secured and keep a low profile. Yeah, just throw yourself in a hardware wallet. Given that we had planned to move the business to Dubai, we have to go there soon to assess whether we move there as originally planned or if the future holds something very different for us. For now, things are very fluid and the main emphasis is on aiding the recovery process for creditors. Please don't kill me. And then Davies had to say, his partner, I have a feeling my next year is planned for me. That might very well be the case. I mean, you can probably think of many reasons why he won't be having too much freedom and in his daily activities as he might have enjoyed recently. One of them got stopped at the airport trying to get into India. That was the Coinbase insider trading thing. We're gonna look a little bit into that. Yeah, one of them was stopped trying to escape into India, and him and his brothers, I believe it's two brothers, are facing decade, I think 30 years in prison possibly for this insider trading. In the first case that's been filed against uh, in crypto for any sort of company, which is interesting to follow. There's a lot of drama surrounding that. Yeah, thank you though, Beach Whale. Yeah, you are keeping up with everything though, for sure. So FTX, this might be a benefit to you if you have funds locked up in Voyager. Maybe you didn't lose your funds to Celsius. Maybe you currently are dealing with Voyager instead. Well, Voyager looks like they're working on a proposed deal here, perhaps with FTX and Alameda, whereby you might get access to your funds as early as August. So here's the press release. FTX Trading, owner and operator of FTX.com, a leading global cryptocurrency exchange, today announced a joint offer with West Realm Shires Inc., the owner and operator of FTX US, and Alameda Ventures to provide early liquidity to customers of Voyager Digital LLC, which filed for bankruptcy in New York earlier this month. So under this joint proposal, customers of Voyager would have the opportunity to start a new account with FTX, one of the bigger cryptocurrency exchanges, and surely you've heard of them offering money across the whole sector to companies to bail them out, to stop further contagion, being the reasoning for that, even if they don't make money on some of these deals. But anyway, if you're a customer of Voyager dealing with all of this and the bankruptcy, you might have the opportunity to start a new account with FTX with an opening cash balance funded by an early distribution on a portion of their bankruptcy claims, on your bankruptcy claims. Customers would be able to withdraw their cash immediately or use it to purchase digital assets on the FTX platform. Yeah, it would get to benefit somewhat off of your trading. No customers required to participate, and participate in the joint proposal is fully voluntary. So maybe you do need that capital right away and you're willing to take that haircut, maybe even a bigger haircut. FTX hopes to close the transaction as promptly as possible, preferably in early August. So that would be very, very soon, subject to the requirements of Chapter 11 process and the need for court approval. They, however, will not be providing funds that are related to loans to Three Arrows Capital. They're going to wait for Voyager to get back the $650 million. I believe that's the number that's due to them from 3AC Capital on their own. So you might see that money at a different time that will not be included. And as far as a statement from Sam Bankman-Fried, he said, Voyager's customers did not choose to be bankruptcy investors holding unsecured claims. The goal of our joint proposal is to help establish a better way to resolve an insolvent crypto business, a way that allows customers to obtain early liquidity and reclaim a portion of their assets without forcing them to speculate on bankruptcy outcomes and take one-sided risks. So that is seemingly at its face seems like a pretty good thing. Getting your funds ASAP, as soon as possible. But there is some pushback that I did see on Reddit that I wanted to show you. Elon Musk had this to say. It seems upon first glance they're offering cash for depositors at fair market price, but my initial reading is setting that price at July 5th's price, which is like 1,100 ETH only. So obviously we're a lot higher than that right now. Well, substantially higher. If FTX is buying Voyager's digital assets and then giving customers a 30-40% haircut while they keep some pro rata portion of those assets depending on what they're actually acquiring versus what of Voyager's claims are leaving behind, gonna have to see if I can find real numbers of what actually Alameda and FTX would be acquiring. But this sounds like a huge predatory move on a bunch of desperate bag holders. I hope I'm wrong, but FTX and SBF are the very last people I'd trust to be genuinely altruistic in such a move. What do you think that SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried's intentions are with all of this? I mean, it seems to me like more of a consolidation of power that we're seeing around him, and it seems like he's trying to take the big spotlight away from Michael Saylor in a huge way. That's kind of what I'm reading here. It seems like big power moves, trying to get in good with everyone. I don't know how profitable again all this will be, but this one might in fact be profitable as you drive more customers to FTX. You get them opening accounts, you get them trading right on there, you get them to, I mean, if they only get yesterday's, or you get what I'm saying, prices for those assets, then who's benefited off of that? Obviously, it would be those who bought all those loans, which would be FTX, buying all the loans except for the ones from Three Arrows Capital. So an interesting situation there. Yeah, FTX is going to own everything. I think that is their ultimate plan indeed, Pothead. Thank you for your comments and support all the time as well. You're awesome. You're one of the ones always giving me one, and I appreciate that. Love me some Elon Musk. Yeah, that guy is a star. He's a longtime star, JT. So Jake Chervinsky got into some of the details that I wasn't able to yesterday since we did the Ask Me Anything instead. But he got into some of the details surrounding the SEC's egregious moves, perhaps, that surrounded this individual who tried to flee to India and his brothers, who were the product managers at Coinbase, who were privy to assets. They were privy to assets that would be listed on Coinbase, and they were able to make like $1.5 million because the guy who worked at Coinbase was tipping his brothers on the side and saying, do these trades. They were doing it using Ethereum addresses that weren't linked to everything. They were trying to keep everything super quiet, but they obviously made a killing off of this. And so the SEC has done something strange in basically saying a bunch of these assets, just called them securities out of nowhere, alongside the Department of Justice prosecution there that we saw. So Jake Chervinsky summed up a lot of what has upset many. It upset Coinbase, the exchange that might have allowed for trading of these securities, since they're not an exchange that is supposed to allow for trading of securities, and they vet these products and make sure that they're not securities. They do rigorous diligence. They even published a blog post that they went into it on how they really don't believe. They're pushing back against the SEC. So Jake covered a lot of this for us, and I want to share these details with you because I think it is interesting and you should be aware of it. The SEC filed a complaint yesterday accusing 10 companies of violating the securities laws. 9 digital asset issuers and 1 exchange. None of them are defendants in the case. None of them will get their day in court. If this isn't regulation by enforcement, Nothing is. Some background. The defendants are three individuals, a former Coinbase employee, his brother, and his friend. Well, there we are. So his brother and friend, not his two brothers, who allegedly engaged in insider trading. In addition to the SEC suit, the DOJ indicted them for criminal wire fraud. To be clear, I'm not trying to excuse insider trading or fraud in any way. If the allegations are true, these defendants should be held accountable. But we can and should condemn both the defendants' alleged conduct and the SEC's unjust tactics too. The SEC alleges that the defendants committed securities fraud by using material non-public information to trade ahead of Coinbase listing announcements. To establish jurisdiction, the SEC claims that the assets in question, 9 digital assets, are unregistered securities. As far as I know, the SEC has never addressed these assets before. We learned the SEC's views on the fact patterns that it believes qualifies them as securities for the first time in a federal complaint rather than in guidance or rulemaking. This is regulation by enforcement. It's not uncommon to learn for the first time that an enforcement agency has identified a violation when a complaint is filed. But typically, that happens when the agency files an action against a person who they think broke the law. This time is different, very different. Here, the SEC isn't accusing the defendants of breaking the law. The SEC is also accusing 10 unrelated, uncharged companies of breaking the law, 9 for failure to register digital asset securities, and 1 for operating an unregistered national securities exchange. Despite leveling accusations against uncharged companies in public, the complaint is devoid of legal analysis. The SEC just makes a few allegations of fact and then summarily concludes that they satisfy Howey. But surely these are securities, they say. To win, the SEC must prove that one or more of these assets is a security. In a real sense, these companies are on trial too. But because the SEC didn't name them as defendants, they aren't allowed to defend themselves in court. On principle, this is deeply unfair and unjust. The individual defendants are now on the hook for litigating the security status of all 9 assets and paying for the cost of defending 9 separate sub-trials. The amount of money that would take is astronomical. If I were cynical, I'd say that's why the SEC did it this way. It's even worse than that, though. Some of these assets are currently listed on other trading platforms in the USA. Those platforms now have to wonder if they should delist the assets identified by the SEC to protect themselves from enforcement. We saw that happen with Ripple, with XRP. Just by making unproven accusations in an enforcement action, the SEC can impose obligations on platforms and restrictions on companies of a type that usually requires regulation, literally regulation by enforcement. But unlike actual regulation, no opportunity to be heard. The SEC isn't supposed to act like this, accusing people of breaking the law without bringing an action. From its website, it is the general policy of the SEC to conduct its investigations on a confidential basis to preserve the integrity of the investigative process, as well as to protect persons against whom unfounded charges may be made, or the SEC determines that enforcement action is not necessary or appropriate. The SEC should keep its accusations confidential until and unless it sues the wrongdoer. This week, the SEC's enforcement director testified in Congress and refused to answer some questions for this very reason: confidentiality. For example, on exchange actions, he said, "I can't talk about what matters we're looking at or not looking at." That's the same director who said last November that the SEC doesn't engage in regulation by enforcement, even though everyone in the bar and everyone in the industry believes that it is not accurate and has never been so, as one lawyer put it. Even other high-ranking officials have come out to explain that this is a quintessential case of regulation by enforcement. So there was a letter by the SEC that was I completely lost it. I was trying to be cool there with this weird scroll, as you can see. But yeah, there was a lengthy letter that was put out. The case SEC versus Wahi is a striking example of regulation by enforcement, the CFTC said. The SEC complaint alleges that dozens of digital assets, including those that could be described as utility tokens and or certain tokens related to decentralized autonomous organizations, are securities. They basically said exactly the same thing that Jake is trying to get into here, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. You might say the SEC is doing its job, going after bad actors in crypto, and we should forgive defects like this for the greater good. Maybe that's what the SEC hopes that you'll do. Don't. DOJ charged wire, not securities fraud. There's no purpose to the SEC piling on. At least not if the goal is to see bad actors punished and justice done. Instead, this appears to be another effort by the SEC to expand its own regulatory authority over crypto markets by enforcement without doing the hard work of proving that securities laws apply. They don't want to do that effort. It's worth noting that one of the 10 uncharged companies has already come forward to aggressively challenge the SEC's unproven accusations. And there's the blog post by Coinbase there. It's sad but not surprising to see the SEC continue its unfair attacks on crypto. As I said, we knew the SEC planned to ramp up enforcement this year, so I assume this is only the beginning. They've recently, for example, petitioned to Congress for even more funding to increase their number of employees, to go after even more companies and do their enforcement. I hope their next move won't be so unfair and unjust. Corruption at the highest level. That's what we're getting. That's why we're in crypto. That's where we're trying to build alternative financial systems and alternative systems in general, is because it forces transparency. We get sidetracked a little bit with things like centralized finance and the regulations, and to allow some of these centralized operators to continue. But there is just so much corruption, and I think that's really what drove Satoshi to create Bitcoin. He was pretty upset about something, I'd imagine. Anyway, where were we here? So Jeremy Gardner, he is just a legendary OG in this space who's been around a long time. He was known for having the crypto castle. I think he was making a documentary in his own crypto castle where he had crypto types coming in and out, staying there. He was a founder of Augur, one of the first prediction markets for trading and betting on future events on a decentralized network. And so Jeremy Gardner had this to say. It looks like he hasn't really been keeping up with the merge himself, which goes to show just how not priced in it is. He tweeted yesterday, anyone who believes the Ethereum merge is priced in is smoking crack. So he gets that it's not priced in, but he thinks that there's going to be an earlier drop than there is. And you'll see that right now. Nothing is priced in crypto, especially an event as convoluted and unprecedented as this. But if I were a betting man, I'd say ETH goes up prior to the merge, drops on merged because of unlocked coins, and then goes up. But everyone, myself included, started letting him know that there would be no unlocking of coins when the merge happens. They simply will continue to be locked up for 6 to 12 months estimated, as we've talked about here, before those coins are unlocked. And they're going to be on a queue. It's not like everything is going to be unlocked and withdrawable at once. There's going to be a limit to how much can be withdrawn. And if you're suddenly getting a return on this asset, maybe this asset is worth a lot more. Maybe it behooves you to instead keep that ETH on there and keep generating interest on this passive interest investment vehicle that's working out quite well for you. And there are many other reasons you might want to keep your ETH in there as well. But anyway, Jeremy Gardner did correct himself. He said, I stand corrected. Sorry, I wasn't on Twitter all day. ETH goes up prior to merge, then drops. So this is his new estimate. Drops, buy the rumor, sell the news. I think that might make sense. Then hits all-time highs for the year before dropping after the first unlock. So he actually thinks that we're going to see some sort of sell the news after the merge, but it's probably going to be short-lived. And in fact, into the real withdrawal period, when that takes place and things move to the execution layer to enable that, then eventually once we reach that, the 6 to 12 months out, probably closer to 12 months out, then that will be when we actually get a drop, as people start fearing, oh no, the great unlock. So I could imagine that could be pretty real. So I think he's got right. So I think he's a little bit more on the mark here with how I'm seeing things. Of course, he did point out that there is the possibility you have Coinbase and Kraken enabling liquidity trading. I haven't heard much from Coinbase. I'm not sure about Kraken. He pinged the CEO of Kraken here, Jesse Powell. I don't think Jesse has responded yet. But there could be the possibility that if you have funds that are currently staked and locked up on either Coinbase or Kraken, that just like you see with other platforms like Lido, you might have the opportunity to trade a derivative token before the actual release happens. So that might be something that could enable you to get access to those funds sooner rather than later, and that might be of benefit to you. But again, haven't heard anything recently from Coinbase or Kraken in relation to that. So I thought this was great. This was something else on ETH Finance that I had to just share with you guys because I thought it was so funny. So it looks like there's a belief that, in fact, Ethereum and Bitcoin are going to be merging, according to the retailist of retail investors. So check this out. My dad is peak retail investor, and he texted me this yesterday. I saw news on TV that Ethereum is merging with the Bitcoin on 19th September. Do we get benefits from this? Please let me know. Thank you. I think I understand why, said Bartib, and this confusion might be more spread than we think. I was listening to a finance channel today. It's French, called BFM Business, interviewing all day long experts who don't know what they talk about when it comes to blockchain technologies. They said at 19 minutes and 30 seconds, Ethereum will merge with the Bitcoin chain in September. I'm quite sure such a speech makes the general public believe that Ethereum and Bitcoin will merge, because Bitcoin could be either Bitcoin, it could be the beacon chain, which is, I think, what he meant to say, or it could be Bitcoin, whatever that is. So you can imagine why there would be confusion around this. Should I do anything? Am I going to get rich when Bitcoin and Ethereum merge? A little bit off the mark with that one, but just lightening things up with that. So we've seen also ETH balances on exchanges, according to Glassnodes, have been dropping and dropping and dropping. I think this is interesting, and it's really fallen off a cliff recently. It looks like, to me, we're probably getting more and more ETH locked up and set aside in order to take advantage of staking and yield opportunities. So just something that to me shows the flippening could be happening as well, when you just have this continual downtrend of ETH on exchanges despite more and more ETH being printed. I think that's something that's pretty bullish. Let me know your thoughts. And I also wanted to share this with you. Oh, before I get into that real quickly, in response to Minecraft banning NFTs, banning blockchains, the head of Epic Games, one of the biggest companies in gaming out there right now, and I mean, Tim Sweeney was known for Epic as way back as some of the earliest first-person shooter games. So he's one of the one of these most influential minds in gaming and thinking. But he went against actually what Minecraft has done in relation to banning NFTs with this comment that we're seeing on Twitter. So there was a comment by Joe Dickless Richard who said, "Hey, Epic Games, it'd be really nice to see the same opinion from the Epic Game Store. Same opinion as Minecraft. Please get rid of every last one of those games on the store." Gamers on Reddit and on Twitter just really don't seem to like NFTs at all, or crypto in general. But Tim Sweeney responded and he said, "Developers should be free to decide how to build their games, and you are free to decide whether to play them. I believe stores and operating system makers shouldn't interfere by forcing their views onto others. We definitely won't." So taking the other side of that, you gotta love in a way how there's this idea of capitalism and freedom that exists. Anyway, to get into this, so Solana is a project that I'm not sure how many of you guys who watch the show are invested in. Let me know if you are into Solana and if this would be kind of a bash to you. But like I've said throughout the years, I've seen so many red flags around Solana, and these were summarized by Justin Bonds here, who is a researcher who's been full-time crypto researcher since 2014. He's gone ahead and summarized in this thread just some of these red flags of Solana, and I wanted to present them to you to show you why it might be, you should be a little bit more careful if you're trying to bet on Solana. And not that it will go down right away. We've seen some other things, I'm not going to say, that continue to this very day to exist and dupe in more and more investors that look pretty, but one day might wreck them. Might not, I hope not. But Solana, here's one. Here, Solana has far too many red flags. Blockchains should never have downtime. Yet Solana has gone down at least 7 times since I first spoke out. So at least 7 times. I don't think anyone knows how many times Solana has gone down. A consequence of their own design decisions, there are many examples of lies, fraud, and bad design exposing a pattern of bad behavior. Starting with blatant fraud at the birth of this project, this is like going back through history for me. In early April 2020, the Sol team stated that the total circulating supply was 8.2 million, when in reality, the total circulating supply was above 20 million. As questions and critiques started to pile up over the following weeks, the official moderators kept insisting that there were no extra circulating supply as people grew more suspicious, especially as Sol failed to update their Binance and CoinMarketCap info. By the end of the month, a third party found an unlocked Solana wallet containing 13 million tokens. Once the Solana team was fully exposed, they released a Medium article admitting to the fraud, explaining that these 13 million tokens were loaned to a market maker. I remember covering that here back then. While promising to get these coins back and burn them within 30 days. On numerous occasions in the following weeks, the Solana team guaranteed that they would not release any new coins into the market without announcing it beforehand, repeatedly making this promise. On May 23rd, the Solana team announced that they were only able to retrieve 3.3 million coins out of the 11.3 million they had loaned out. So instead, they released 8 million new Sol tokens into circulation in order to meet their commitment to burn without any announcement beforehand. The total circulating supply was now 16 million, double the supply promised in April. After this, they just moved on. So this continues this thread. I did retweet it, so check that out on my Twitter page if you want to check it out for yourself. They go on to some of the claims about how it was the massive transactions per seconds that brought us down, but that TPS was measured including what was in the mempool and memory pool that wasn't yet pushed to the blockchain. So again, just being fraudulent with the data that they're presenting to use as marketing and to get more people involved, VCs who may not have done much diligence and other things. So check this out. I think it is something worth reading if you are considering getting involved with Solana and getting involved with investing specifically. So we'll leave it at that. Bitcoin, we'll see where it goes here with this chart here. I'm hearing that as long as we close over the 22,500, this would keep us in a nice territory here at good support levels to continue higher, but we might have to give some back. I think some are waiting to see us pull back to 20,000 before they continue buying, pending what is going to come out of the Fed this coming week. I think it's going to be setting a real precedent what happens here. If the Fed, the best case scenario, my opinion, would be that the Fed raises rates 100 basis points, we see stocks go down, and we see cryptos explode higher. That would be, to me, uncorrelation, and that would start the potential for a real rally that would put cryptos where they need to be ahead of everything else. That's what I think here at Cryptos News. Let me know what you do. Anyway, we'll finish with the quote of the day, as we often do. When you focus on the good increases. I do firmly believe where you put your attention grows. So I would try to look for the better projects out there and try to stick with the better communities. And I think you're going to be doing all right. You're going to be doing all right. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for supporting the show and for making it out. And I will catch you next time. Take care. Much love and stay cryptic. Peace.